All right, good morning, everybody. I have got 10 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and get started, and hopefully some more join us. They will get caught up with today's presentation. My name is Lisa Rawlings. I'm a risk consultant with Inspirian, and Inspirian is the management company for HWCF, our Healthcare Workers' Compensation Fund. Today, we're going to be talking about our grant program for 2022. So thank you for joining us. If you have not applied in the past, I will point out some key things for you to keep in mind. And if you have applied in the past, then I will also point out some key changes for this year and just reminders, okay? Just a couple of reminders before we get started. If you registered early, you may have received the handouts and the applications in an email from us. But if you didn't receive them, or if you're just joining us directly, then the handouts are in the pane to the right on your screen in the drop-down box. So you can print those out and keep those if you'd like to. You can also access this information on our www.hwcf website or our Inspirian website. If you go to the HWCF website, it'll be right there on the front page, all the information you need. Plus, we're going to record one of these presentations. So if there's somebody else in your facility you would like to view this that's not able to attend this presentation right now or the presentation this afternoon, then they can watch it anytime it's convenient for them. You can also access our applications on that same website. All right, so let's get started. I don't want to delay us anymore. Just a few reminders as we start out the day. You know, our mission is to be a remarkable partner for whatever risk lies ahead for you. And I think in doing this 2022 grant, I hope that you see the connections that are made between our mission, our vision, and our values. So as you can see what our vision is, it's inspiring new ideas and actions to effectively manage our partners' risk, and then all of our core values. And I think all of these core values play into what we're doing with our HWCF grant program. So our purpose is in alignment with our mission, vision, and values. We want to continue to offer this grant program so that we can be a truly remarkable partner with you, and where we can work together with your unique ideas to effectively better manage your risk. You know, you are the frontline people, so you know what your company and your facility needs. And we want to be able to partner with you to be able to provide those needs, especially where there's monetary value attached to that. The objective here is for us to encourage and support your efforts in developing innovative, safety-sensitive projects while mitigating the cost of developing, participating in, or enhancing a risk reduction strategy, program, or process. So furthering this positive impact, the ideas that you all generate in the grant submissions need to be able to be shared with our other fund members. And it doesn't mean that they would use it exactly like you use it or the exact same thing, but your ideas and thought processes that you put forth in this grant application, we want to be able to share. So just keep that in mind as well. So just an overview and a big surprise for us, 2022, our board of directors were very gracious enough to increase our award monies from $50,000 to $100,000. That means that if we have 5 winners, you can have up to $20,000 in award money granted to you. Doesn't mean you have to apply for the whole $20,000, and we'll talk about that more in a few minutes, but just keep in mind that you can apply for up to $20,000 this year for the first time. You can only submit 1 application per facility, so that's part of our rules, and it must include a detailed budget on what you're going to spend that money on if you were to win it. And there is some reports that are due that we'll talk about in a few minutes, because I've got everything better aligned on one page. That'll make it really simple to look back for. But just keep in mind that any of our risk consultant team members are willing to assist you throughout this process. So even if it's, you know, brainstorming what you want to apply for, potentially, reach out to either myself or Debbie Franklin or Wendy Charette, whoever is your assigned risk consultant, and we're happy to talk through that with you and hopefully spark some ideas of interest or guide you one way or the other if you've already got ideas. If you have any difficulties with the application itself, same thing, reach out to one of us and we will certainly be glad to help you. And then if you do become a winner, we'll help you throughout the whole process following that as well. So we award the winners the monies in two different areas. It's two payments basically. You get 50% initially whenever we announce the winners, and this year that will be on May 11th in a live event. And then you'll get the 50% of your money payout in January following one of your implementation reports that you send in to me. But it'll be no later than January 30th. So I want you to think about the scoring qualifications here. And most of this is covered in the grant application itself, and we're going to go through those in a few minutes. But first and foremost, you have to be a member, a current member with HWCF. So if you're unsure whether or not you're a current member, please go to your CEO and CFO and make that determination before you put a lot of work into this. Secondly, your applications have to be received by midnight on March 28th. I have to set a deadline that we have to stick to, but so it can be fair for everybody. And that is going to be the date this year that your application is due. And your projects, like I said, have to be adaptable to other fund members, and you have to be willing to share that information. But I mean, it's not going to put any undue effort on your part because we're happy to share that information for you whenever our fund members reach out about what you shared with us. I may just have to contact you and say, hey, can you give me an update or give me some more specific information so I can share it with others. So another one of the qualification rules is you have to be current with your financial obligations with HWCF in order to be scored and in order for you to receive your payouts at the two different points through the year. So again, this is something you may not personally know, so you want to reach out to your CFO or CEO and make sure that you're up to date with your payments to us, because I cannot forward your application if you are behind in payments. You have to identify a project coordinator, and that person is really just who I'm going to stay in contact with throughout the year, just to say, hey, it's time for another update. Can you shoot me something by email? And or can I reach out to you and get some more information about what you did with the grant, because we have another fund member interested. Doesn't necessarily have to be you. It can be anybody in your organization. I just need to know who that person's name is and how I get in touch with them. And that's on the application as well. Then these are the periodic progress report dates that you'll need to submit to me. So it starts after implementation of your project. Your application is due March 28th, but you don't have to start your project until around the July timeframe, and I've got that date coming up. So your first report to me won't be until October 17th of this year. Then you'll give me a second report January 16th and a third report and your final report July 10th of next year. This first initial report is generally what I found to be really the most important information, and it'll probably be the most information you supply to me, because it basically just tells me everything you've done at the beginning, and most of the work seems to be done right at the upfront. Your application also has to include a letter of support from your CEO or your administrator. That's already in the application. It's already typed up. All you have to do is get a signature and a date. Some people have gone the extra mile and they have an actual letter typed up by their CEO that they send as an attachment with their application. And you are more than welcome to do that, but you certainly don't have to do that. And your project needs to be very specific to risk reduction initiatives related to employee or workplace safety. So please keep that in mind. The ideas out there are limitless, but you do want it to be heavily focused toward employee safety and workplace safety, because that's what HWCF represents. And remember that whatever your goals are, you want them to be identifiable and measurable to an extent. These are our exclusions for grant applications, and you can see there's very few. So first of all, the funds cannot be used to fund new employee positions or additional staff. So that's important to keep in mind. Secondly, it can't be used for reimbursement for something you've already put into place, okay? Not at this time anyway. So for our grant purposes, it needs to be something that you're wanting to do here in the near future. And then any other of the qualifications that I listed, if you don't meet those, then those are going to be excluded as well. So let's talk about the process for just a minute. You want to be sure that you complete the application in its entirety. And the application, I think, is one of the most simple ones out there. And like I said, I'm going to share that with you in a few minutes, and we'll go through it. You want to pay very special attention to the requirements and to how they're scored, because whatever you give to us, we may think is a great idea, but we don't do the scoring. We send these off to be scored to another state. And those people don't know you, and they won't know you because I redact all your information, your personal information. So all they have to go on is what you submit. So you want to be sure that you look at that scoring qualification and criteria, because that's how they're going to be scoring your application. All we do basically, once I send the qualified applications out to be scored, once they come back to me, then I do the weighted scoring of those. So they're initially scored, and then I just add the weights to them. And then we announce the winners and give you a paycheck. All right, I think we've covered all that. The winners are going to be announced in a live event on May 11th of this year. I don't know specifically how we're going to do that. Last year we went out to the facilities. This year we may bring you back into our building for this announcement, but we'll worry about that whenever you're a winner and we get a little bit closer. Organizations that do receive grant funds will agree to sign an agreement with us that your stated goals are within the budget outlined in the proposal, and you must remain current, remember, financially with us throughout this process so that we can still administer you those 50% grant awards at the designated time frames. Oh, I went too fast. You also have to implement activity and program plan as outlined in your proposal and complete your progress reports that are super simple and your measurement outcomes as requested. And then, like I said, be willing to share that information. So this is the grant example we used last year and the year before that, and it's a really pretty easy one to follow, so that's why I kept it. Remember or keep in mind that your grant application can either be proactive or reactive. This is an example of a reactive grant application. So that means, you already know that there's an issue because you've had injuries or complaints or something of that nature, and you're wanting to react to those to fix them. Proactive means you're thinking ahead, you see areas of opportunity, and you want to implement something to prevent any issues from occurring in the future. So let's look at this reactive grant application real quick, and then I'll share with you a proactive in a minute. Let's say that you review your OSHA 300 log and you realize that the majority of your recordable injuries over the last year have been related to muscle strains. And once you dig deeper into that, you find that the majority of those muscle strains were directly contributed from transferring patients. Okay, you calculate your current rate of muscle strain injuries by dividing the muscle strains you have by your total number of injuries, all injuries. So in this example, let's just say you had 9 muscle strains total, but you had 20 of all injuries across the board. And once you divide that up, you see that 45% of your injuries are related to muscle strains. Let's say you talk with your risk manager or your employee health provider there in your facility, and you decide that you do want to apply for a grant related to this, and you want to ask for equipment, transfer equipment that you might not have available currently. And you also want to implement a train the trainer program so that once you get your equipment, you can train your employees that you currently have, but you can continue to train as you get new employees in, and then you might want to do annual training for the employees currently on an ongoing basis so that everybody's using the equipment appropriately all the time. You might also consider reaching out to one of us as your risk consultants and say, hey, do you have any education related to strains, muscle strains? And we would say, yes, we do have a back injury course that we'd be glad to provide for your staff. And that will go hand in hand with why you're implementing this equipment. You set a reasonable goal. So maybe it's not that you want to have 0 muscle strains, because it's a pretty hefty goal for anybody. Maybe you say you want to reduce what you do have by 25% in the next year, which is pretty attainable if it's utilized appropriately. And then you might need to consider modifying your policies and procedures to make sure you have updated them accordingly due to the new equipment and that you are going to do this training on an ongoing basis. You have won the grant according to your application, and now it's time to receive the equipment, put in the training that you said that you were going to do initially for all your current employees that are applicable for this, and you're going to continue to track your muscle strains and measure your progress quarterly. You then submit an implementation report to us 3 months after the start date, and the progress report at 6 months, and then a year out. You evaluate your progress toward your stated goal, which remember was 25% reduction in your muscle strains, and you continue to evaluate the effectiveness of this intervention. Then you come up with another great idea and put in another application for 2023. This really is this simple, y'all. I'm not trying to make it something that it's not. It is one of the most simple grants out there. We wanted to share with you just a few of the past winner examples. So you can read this on the slide. We also have the past winner examples available on the HWCF website. Whenever you go to that under the grant program, it'll share with you a lot of our previous winner examples. And some of these have been multiple facilities. So let's say for the mobile patient lift system, for the transport chairs, for things like that, sometimes it's been multiple facilities that applied in different years and won. So it doesn't mean that just because it's up here, you can't apply for this. You certainly can. These are just some things to think about. Registration Department Safety and Security Updates was one where they found that their registration area, they had some injuries contributed based on the layout of it and some of the equipment that was in it, cords, the way the cords were placed across the room, so on and so forth. And they won. Emergency communication method. This has been a winner 2 years in a row for the same facility. So the first year, this facility implemented what's called an Alert Us communication emergency methodology. And what that does is it has an announcement overhead by the press of one button that says things like stroke alert emergency room, stroke alert emergency room, which means that the team members that are involved in that stroke alert can report to the emergency room. But it doesn't stop there. It's also programmed where it comes across their certain people's computer screens, stroke alert in the emergency room. And for the CEO and some of the other leadership employees, it comes across their cell phone. So even if you're not present in the facility, you know what's going on. They implemented that the first year that they won, and then the sequential year, which was last year, they added the fire alarm panel to it. So kudos to them for winning 2 years in a row and just continuing to add to that safety project they already had put in place. The colored alert wax is where one of our facilities won, and you know, our floors look really clear, and they determined that a lot of their spills were clear liquids as well, water or something of that nature, and it was difficult to see the wet areas. So this colored alert wax turns red if there's wet areas on the floor, and that alerts everyone to it. So again, I have to say kudos to every one of the winners. I don't want to go into each individual one, but mobile patient lift systems, replacement of meal delivery carts was another winner. And this has been at multiple facilities as well. In fact, Clay County Hospital won this last year. So they found that their dietary staff was suffering from muscle strains from pushing the very heavy metal carts that delivered their meals, and they replaced those throughout their facility with a much lighter weight cart. And once they did their most recent implementation report to me, they said, by the way, not only does our dietary staff love it, because it's much easier to use, and we have had 0 complaints of muscle strains or injuries since implementation, they also roll so much quieter for our patients. So that's a bonus as well if you can impact patient safety or patient satisfaction with these things as well. Security system for building entry was one of the winners, transport chairs and security door locks and cameras. So I wanted to mention our winners last year. I've already mentioned Clay County. Mizell was a winner from last year where they implemented a safety program to include their new maintenance personnel and biomed personnel. They had almost a complete turnover from people retiring, so they needed new equipment, new training, and they wanted to implement monthly safety meetings throughout the facility involving these people and all departments. They were one of our winners. We also had Coosa Valley, which was one of the transport chairs. They implemented this, and if I'm not mistaken, they won twice as well. And so these are different wheelchairs that have arms that raise for people to get in and out safely, and you're able to transport not only the patient, but you're also able to transport the IV fluids and other equipment more safely and with less personnel. So they have implemented that and been very happy with theirs. Washington County was the one who implemented Alert Us. And who am I forgetting? Glenwood. Glenwood implemented their winnings from last year, which was the security door locks and cameras. They were opening a new facility, and they determined in advance, so this was a proactive application. They determined in advance that this was in what was considered a high crime area. They did their research and got statistics from their local police department and state police department to support the crime rates. And they said, you know, while we're building this, let's think about what we can do to make the building safer. So they applied for badge entry doors, so that besides the front door, so that all other doors were only to be entered by employees, and they supplied security cameras all throughout and around the building. So again, kudos for the proactive thinking in that nature as well. But like I said, there's just so many things you can think about that you might personally want for your facility that could be one of these or very different. I will also share with you that I looked at one of our fellow states winners for their grant projects yesterday, and I noticed that many of them had won for infection prevention within their employees. And a couple of the things that they had done were very specific to COVID related. One of them, and I have not looked up all the details of this, so forgive me, I'm just sharing the high level of what I know, was like a little robot that they purchased that goes in the room after a COVID patient has been there, and it does some sort of initial cleaning and sanitation of the room before staff enter it, so that the staff are safer and are less likely to catch something following a patient's discharge and they're going in to clean that room. So that was pretty interesting, and I've got to look more into that to see about it, but I thought, you know, way to think outside of the box. Here's one slide that shares all the critical dates. I tried to put everything in one place, so this would be an important one to print out if you apply so that you can keep up. But if you don't, it's fine. I'm going to send you a reminder a couple of weeks in advance. So submission deadline is March 28th. The winners are going to be on May 11th, and that's our first payout. So half of what your winnings are. July 11th is when you have to start your program and implement whatever your project is. So 3 months after that, it's going to be your initial report to me. That'll be October 17th. Then the next progress report is due January 16th. And your second payout, or the last 50% of your grant, will be awarded following that, but before January 30th. And then your final report is July 10th of 2023. And that's where you stop reporting to us. But keep in mind, I might reach out in the future and just say, hey, how are things? Where are you with this? What about your injuries? Oh, too fast again. So there's our website information. I already mentioned that, but also it's got my contact information. It's got my direct cell phone number, my office phone number, and my email. I will say that one of the easiest way to get in touch with me is via email, just because I'm so busy most of the time that it's hard for me to answer the phone. But if you leave me a message, I will certainly get back to you. So just let me know if you need help throughout any of this entire process. And then lastly, before we move on to our applications themselves, I want to thank our HWCF Board of Directors for continuing to support this program. And whenever we presented to them that, you know, a lot of our facility winners were having to match money to meet the needs of what they wanted to implement. And I said, you know, is there any way we could raise this money? Hands down, everyone was in agreement and said, yes, let's do it. So that's how we reached that 100,000 mark this year. And a special thanks also to the Mississippi Hospital Association and the Louisiana Hospital Association Trust Fund for their helping develop our course and their continued support throughout the years of us having this grant program. All right, if y'all have questions about what I just presented, you are certainly welcome to put those in the chat box that is available, and Debbie is monitoring that, and she will stop me or she will let me know if I need to answer any questions. Otherwise, I'm going to move straight into looking at the grant itself, and let's go through this. Debbie, am I good so far? Keep going?
You're good.
Okay.
It's not showing your application. It's just showing your screen.
You know what? Let me change my screen. That's why. Thank you for doing that.
We don't have any questions. There you go. That looks good.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. So here is the application itself. The very first page has all those critical dates. So you have them for you. And it also has my information on how to contact me. I will point out that if you have applied in the past, and this year, the one thing that's different on this front page is going to be the mailing address. So I changed our applications to electronic last year, and we would certainly prefer that you do them electronically if you have that ability. But if for whatever reason you cannot do it electronically, if you print it out and handwrite it, be sure your writing is legible. Remember, because we're not going to be scoring it, somebody else is, and we want to be sure that they understand specifically what you're saying. And secondly, if you do print it out and handwrite it, I would encourage you to scan it in and then email it to me. But last resort, if you have to mail it in, I changed our mailing address from our PO box to our actual physical address because we were having some issues with our mailings in Montgomery. So if you do mail it in, please send it to 509 Oliver Road. All right, just a simple program overview. First of all, on our application, and then it goes into the qualification criteria, which I've already covered with everybody. It's just listed out again for you to reread. Applicants must meet all 11 items below for scoring. So use this as a checklist, and as long as you've met every single one of those, you're good. Our exclusions, remember, they're very few. And then the process itself is just defined again for you to read. Then we move on over here to our actual application. All right, so you're just going to put in all your personal information here, your CEO's information, whoever your project coordinator is that I'm going to stay in contact with throughout this process. And then you move on to whatever your grant request is, up to $20,000. Now remember, it doesn't have to be $20,000 if that's not required for your project. If all you need is $10,000, then put $10,000. But here's what I will say about this, and please pay attention to this. If you need a full $20,000, then please put in the full $20,000 and don't put any of your money toward it. Our goal for our HWCF board is we want to spend this whole $100,000 on this grant program this year. So if you apply for $10,000, because that's all you need, then there's a potential that we may have 6 winners this year, because we could have a 6th facility that might be willing to accept $10,000 for their grant recipient. So just keep that in mind, but we don't want you spending money out of pocket if you don't have to, all right? If you have to, then so be it, and I'll show you an example of that in just a minute. Here's where you type your project description. You just start free typing in whatever your project is, okay? And this I only have 3 lines here, but this can be as many lines as you potentially need it to be. You just keep typing. Some people put see attached there, and they put an attachment with their application, and they have hand typed that out themselves, and that's perfectly fine also. However you want to do it. And then your goals and objectives, your development and timeline, and your expected outcomes. And again, I'm going to share an example with you in a minute. Here's the letter for your CEO to sign. So you don't have to do that on your own if you don't want to. And I would mention as well, if there's going to be a department-specific manager that's directly involved with this, let's say you're doing a grant for the dietary department, I would encourage you to have just a short paragraph on your letterhead that says that this dietary manager supports this grant project, because they're going to be the ones that are receiving the equipment and utilizing it and making sure that their staff are trained and so on and so forth. So I would encourage you to do that and just submit that with your application. And then again, the last page is just more information about how to contact us and what to do. So the next one that I want to share with you is going to be the part 2. So there's a part 1 and a part 2 to this application. Part 1 is the only part that you have to fill out. All right. Part 2 is basically for scoring purposes. But I wanted to share this with you because I want you to know how you're going to be scored. This first page is everything for me to do once I get your application. I go through and just do all these as checks. Did you do it or did you not do it? And if everything is yes, then you've met the qualifications for your application to move forward. If I have no on anything on here, then potentially your application is not moving forward to be scored. And then following this is your proposed project budget. You could fill this in if you'd like to, but you certainly don't have to. As long as you provide me with this information on that first part, then I'm happy to fill this part in for you. And then following that is your scoring sheets. So please do pay attention to the fact that these are weighted. So you want to be sure that these that are heavily weighted, you make sure you meet the qualifications for that score, because that's going to bump your score up higher. And you can see they go all the way down, I think, to 10% is the, 10% is the lowest and 30% is the highest. So just for your knowledge and for you to have. And then this last sharing that I'm going to do is the actual sample that I did, so you can see what one looks like. Okay, this is very brief. This is not in its entirety by any means, but I just wanted to show you how you could start filling one out. I made up a bunch of information here at the beginning. And remember I said if you're going to apply for anything less than 20,000 or up to 20,000, you want us to pay for the full thing. I did that different here just because I wanted to show you how to fill it in. I could have made this like 20,000 plus 300, so it would have been 20,300 total, but I didn't. So let's say your total project that you're asking for money for is $17,534, and you're going to contribute $300 for whatever purposes, then that's how you would fill that out. So the total project would cost $17,834. And then here's your description. I did a proactive kind of example here. So again, I used one that was similar to one in the past. Due to crime rates in the area, blah, blah, blah. You can read all that. And again, this is very little information. I would like, the more information you provide, as long as it's not fluff, just give me the facts, then the better it is. Also, I would encourage you, remember that these are going outside our state to be scored. So if you're talking about buying equipment, some of our winners in the past have sent in as an attachment an actual copy of the equipment that they're getting from their website that they're ordering it from. Remember, the better picture you paint, the better that score is going to see what you're going to utilize. So I would encourage you to do that. And it also helps me whenever I share this with our other fund members. I had one the other day that called me and said, can you share with me what Coosa Valley did? And because Coosa Valley had sent me the actual chair from the website that they had purchased and all the information about the chairs, I just simply forwarded that and said, here's what they purchased and all the information about those chairs. So that's very beneficial. Here's what I put for the goals. And again, make them measurable and make sure they're attainable. For this one, I put reduce entry to unmonitored doors by 100%, because if you can only get in by a badge, then you shouldn't have anybody entering without someone with a badge. So that could be one that you would have 0 incidents with. And then develop in timeline. I put see attached cost receipt for purchase of equipment and installation, and plan to order if grant is approved and have installed by. And then expected outcomes was 0 crime-related incidents at the clinic post-installation, 0 incidents of non-staff entering unmonitored doors post-installation. So, all of this is going to be in your own verbiage. And again, I can certainly help you with any of that if you need it. All right, that was a lot that I went over very quickly. I realize that. If any of you have questions, please put it in the chat box. And if you don't want to ask us today on here, feel free to reach out. You've got some time to be thinking about this stuff because it's not due till March 28th, but I would encourage you to not wait until March 27th to start this. because then that can put you in a bind. And here's another tip that I ask everybody to do. If you're filling out your application and you say, you know, I feel good about it, but I just wish I had a second person that could look at it from Inspirian and say how they feel about it, send it to me with a quick little email that just says, hey, Lisa, would you look over this and give me your feedback? Because if you don't, if you just send me the application, then I assume it's complete and you're done with it, and I'm going to put it over here to be filed for review and sent to our scores if it meets all the eligibility requirements. So just know that you have that option. Last two things I just wanted to share with you really quick is if any of you did not receive this, please let us know. We have set up for the year our 2022 risk prevention strategies with our 6 focus areas. And you can see those listed over here on your screen. And we have classes around each of those 6 focus areas that we will have scheduled, as you can see, on an every 2-month basis. And that is for anybody in your facility that is an HWCF member for free, if they can attend these webinars that we have scheduled. So if you did not receive this, it means you're probably not on our current mailing list for this. Just reach out to us and we're happy to share it with you. And the last one that I wanted to share were the ones that we currently have scheduled for January and February, because these are already have dates and times. So we did one yesterday, our 2022 Risk Prevention Strategies Overview, which is a phenomenal webinar. If you did not attend, still have an opportunity on the 25th. So please watch that if you can. It basically spells out everything you can do for your risk prevention program for the year. We also have exploring, hold on, give me a second, I just drew a blank. Enterprise risk management strategies on February 3rd. And we have the impact of workplace violence on February 9th. And we have the active shooter on February 24th. And if you've done these courses with us in the past, they're all being updated. There will be some fresh material this year. So it would be still CE credits for those that need CE credits, but it is just wonderful information to you to have and for you to share with others in your facility. So please, if you didn't receive this, let us know, and we're happy to get you this information. We want as many people to attend as possible, not just 1 or 2 in a facility if we can get that many. All right, anybody have any questions? Debbie, are we good on the chats? There was one last thing I did want to mention. If you go to our HWCF and our Inspirian website, we have toolkits available if you've not been there and utilized them. We have 2 great ones. We have one on COVID and we have one on stress and burnout. And I don't know anybody that couldn't use either of them. So that is another free service to you. We built these toolkits with tons of resources in them for you to go in and get at your need. So please utilize those.
I don't see any questions or anything in the chat box, Lisa, so it looks like we're good.
All right, thank you all so much for your time today. Good luck with your applications. I cannot wait to see what all the ideas and thought processes are this year. And let us know if you need anything in the process of it. Otherwise, we wish y'all a great Friday. Bye, everybody.